Sorry, for the YouTube live, are we audible? Are you guys able to hear us? Yes.
So this time actually Kaustubh told me that you might be knowing that recently there was a draw which came down for French uh, speaking candidates to 375. So which was like in the history of candidate immigration it was the lowest CRS score draw. So Kaustubh told me that there are a lot of questions. So I just want to clarify those questions, and after that, if you have any other question or more questions, we can talk on that. Should the French be listed as the first language or second language in the Express Entry profile? Actually, this question is very interesting question because no, a lot of people are confused about first language and second language. See, when you calculate the CRS score, so that time, if suppose you have CLB 9 as the first language score, then it boosts your score. For example, if suppose you have a master's degree plus your IELTS or maybe any score if CLB 9, then you get 50 out of 50 for your skill, like 100 out of 100 for your skill transferability if you have 3+ years of work experience and masters or a degree and a postgraduate diploma. In education wise, if you have a masters and a degree or postgraduate diploma, and if you have 3+ years of experience, and if you get CLB 9 as a score, then it boosts up your score by 100 points. See, so now if suppose your French language skill set is already CLB 9, then you can keep French language as your first language. But if suppose you are having good English score, if you get already got CLB 9 in IELTS, then I will say that you first write first language as English and then second language as French.
So, as far as the when to give which as first language, whether French or English, as Nilesh correctly said, if you have CLB 9 score in your first language, whichever language you are mentioning as your first language, whether English or French, if you have CLB 9 in all four parts of the exam, then it boosts your human index score of your education and everything. So the only time you should think about putting French as your first language is when your French language score is better than your English language score, and even then it is CLB 9. But as you are aware, it's pretty difficult for most of us, including myself, to get CLB 9 in all four sections of the French test. Thus, more or less, I would say, more or less, for most people, we will keep English as our first language in our Express Entry profile, because there are chances, there are good opportunities, or there are good possibilities or percentages that your IELTS or your English score will be better than your French exam score.
So actually, as Kaustubh said, that is right. Actually, I have some clients from Western African continent as well. So they have French as a primary language. So in that case, most of the clients they prefer to put French as their first language instead of English because their English is not at all good.
I don't know why we have so many repeated questions in the similar thing, but the thing is that you don't need to put your French as first language. That's not a requirement in any of the programs. Okay, if you are under a mistake, under an impression that to be eligible for the French specific or French stream Express Entry draws, you need to have French as first language, that is not correct. And the only scenario, as he mentioned, where you can think about putting French as the first language and English as second is when your TEF and TCF Canada scores of French are better than your IELTS score of English, which is at least CLB 9 and more, which is very rare case. To get CLB 9 or CLB 10 in TCF or TEF Canada is quite rare unless you are a native French speaker that is from the African countries or something like that, which is not the case with most of our students. Thus, we should not spend too much time on this. More or less, whatever you have done will be there. First English as a primary language, you will get benefit of your IELTS score, and then French as a second language will fetch you up to 62 extra CRS points for CLB 7 and up to 74 extra CRS points for CLB 10 in French I'm talking about. So let's say CLB 10 in French in all four modules is pretty difficult. So let's look at the ideal scenario, which is minimum CLB 7, that is B2, in all four sections of the exam. That will get you 62 extra CRS points, 50 for the bonus of fluency and 3 points each for each module. So those are 12. So you get 62 extra points. And this is French as a second language. When I say 62 extra, this is French as a second language. You do not need to make it your first language to become eligible for I'm repeating this 3 times because we have so many questions which are similar questions. You don't need to make it your first language. That's not a requirement. Which language exams will prove my eligibility for French specific draws? It is TEF and TCF Canada. The reason being, I've said multiple times, they require your results to be 2 years recent, like maximum 2 years. And you cannot give DELF and DALF because DELF and DALF results are valid for lifetime. Somebody can give DELF and DALF 10 years ago, get a C1 or B2, and they are still valid, but Canada will not accept it because they need results which are 2 years, maximum 2 years old, which is the case with IELTS also. So for that, you need to give TEF Canada and TCF Canada. These are the 2 recognized exams by IRCC. And for the Francophone Mobility Work Permit Program, which is what they have made changes recently in 15 June, you need only CLB 5 in speaking and listening, for which also you can use TEF and TCF Canada results, but there you can prove your language ability by giving certificate from the university saying that you took your higher education in French, like your undergraduate degree or your master's degree. If you have done it in French as a medium of instruction, if your diploma is in French, like the whole degree is in French, then you can submit those documents and proof, and they might exempt you from the language exam, but that is only for Francophone Mobility Work Permit Program. Otherwise, for Express Entry and all other programs, even provincial nominations, TEF and TCF Canada remain the 2 exam results that are accepted by IRCC.
So what is the minimum language proficiency required for French in Express Entry system? As already discussed, like we need CLB 7 if you want to get the benefit of 62 points. Because if you don't get CLB 7, there would be few points added, but those are not enough to boost up your score. Like for example, Saskatchewan, they even for CLB 5, they give you a couple of points, but those couple of points matters a lot when they have their own PNP draws because their system is totally different for points. Are there any specific French language proficiency level that are required for a different immigration program? As Kaustubh brightly said, for Express Entry, if you want to get maximum points, CLB 7, it is what required. But if it's Francophone mobility program or French job-related program, then CLB 5 in speaking and listening, what is the minimum required for getting a job offer without LMI? Are there any additional benefit or incentives for applicant with strong French language skills? So this is very important, as actually before starting this session, myself and Kaustubh, we were discussing few things. Right now also, if you see everywhere, there some European countries and some part of in the US also, they are going through some recession, but not big recession. But yeah, so in that case, if you have a dual language skill set, you can speak French as well as English. But that will definitely not only going to increase your employment opportunities. Also, if you see the salary structure are also different. If you can speak English and French, the salaries are more high, like higher than the other person who can speak only English as a language.
So far what we have done is, what we have addressed is that do we need to put French as the first language in order to benefit from French specific draws, Express Entry draws? No, not required. You can keep English as your first language in your Express Entry profile, and you can add French as a second language. French as a second language, if you get CLB 5 B1, and we have a separate video on BBartus YouTube channel which explains to you in detail how much benefit you get for French as a second language for each CLB level. In fact, the only level where you start getting benefit, any benefit whatsoever, is CLB 5. Minimum you need CLB 5 in each of the modules of French exam, whether TEF Canada or TCF Canada. You need CLB 5, which is roughly equivalent to B1. Then you get 1 extra CRS point for each module, like speaking, listening, writing, and reading. So if you have CLB 5, let's say CLB 5 in all four exam modules, you get 4 extra CRS points. That's mostly is not a big boost. The major CRS boost comes when you score CLB 7. CLB 7, that is roughly equivalent to B2 in all 4 exam modules, which is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. At that time, not only you get 3 points for each module, that making your advantage 12, But because you have CLB 7, which is B2, in all 4 modules, you are considered as bilingual. You are considered as somebody who speaks 2 languages now, English and French. So then you get 50 extra CRS points as bonus. So that 50 and then 12, 62, you get CRS boost of 62 points when you score CLB 7 in all four sections of the exam, TEF and TCF Canada. Now all these points benefit that we have discussed so far is French as a second language. Now this is not the maximum benefit though. If you are working hard and you really fall in love with French and you are really good at learning languages, you can even go further and score CLB 10 in all 4, not necessarily in all 4, but each of the modules or all 4 modules. This will still get you the 50 extra points that you get for being bilingual apart from after you get CLB 7. But since you got CLB 10, let's say in all 4 modules, instead of 3 per module, you get now 6 per module. So you get 24 extra CRS points for 4 modules and 50 bonus that we talked about that got activated after CLB 7. So you get 50 plus 24, that is 74 extra CRS points. That is pretty much, in fact, the maximum benefit that you can get for French as a second language. Okay. We say French as a second language because most of our students and most of our audience are not Francophone people. They are not coming from French native speaking countries. So I have to insist that this is French as a second language, and then you apply English with IELTS results as your first language. Is that no, you do not need French as a first language in order to become eligible for French specific express entry draws. And the minimum requirement is CLB 7 in all 4 sections to become eligible for the French specific express entry draws. However, for Francophone Mobility Work Permit Program, which we have discussed in detail on our YouTube channel, and maybe you guys can ask some more questions to Nilesh via YouTube or via here, and maybe he will answer your questions. French knowledge or competency in French will also give you benefit, as Nilesh mentioned, fleetingly mentioned, in various provincial nomination programs, whether it's Shakshak 1 or some others. And I think I will let Nilesh, maybe somebody will ask question later. Nilesh will elaborate on which are the provinces which have benefits for French skills in their provincial nomination program. So these are the 3 ways from which you benefit from French. As you know, French specific express entry draws, you need CLB 7 in all 4 sections of TCF and TEF Canada. You don't need to put French as a first language. Sorry for repeating 5th time, but that was the thing. The second way to benefit from French is the Francophone Mobility Work Permit Program. For this, you need CLB 5 or B1 in speaking and listening, but you also need a valid job offer from Canadian employer. So that's the Francophone Mobility Work Permit Program. And the third way you can benefit from French is the provincial nomination programs by various provinces who have special consideration or extra benefit of points for French skills. Now, those French skills need not be CLB 7 for PNP, for the provincial nomination programs. Nilesh mentioned it a little bit, but I'll let him elaborate later whenever somebody asks the specific question. So in summary, these are the ways from which you can benefit in your immigration objectives to Canada by having French competency as a second language. At the same time, as Nilesh mentioned, having French skill set, not just score, but skill set. If you can speak French, if you can demonstrate that you are intermediate level speaker in French, that vastly improves your job opportunities or job prospects in Canada. Because as he mentioned, it is getting sometimes very tough in Canada, the job market, or mild recession, as he mentioned. But being bilingual, having French ability will vastly improve your job prospects in Canada. So that is 4th reason, we would say, to study French and get at least CLB 5, if not more, at least. That's not sufficient all the time, but at least CLB 5 or B1 level score in French.
So now actually there are some questions on Francophone Mobility Program as well.